Imagine a world where your every conversation is monitored, where the tools you rely on to connect with loved ones are systematically dismantled. This is the unsettling reality for many in Russia today, as the government intensifies its efforts to control communication through state-backed platforms. Hello, can you hear me? You're breaking up. Let me try calling back without video. These phrases have become all too familiar for me and countless others trying to reach family in Russia via popular messaging apps like Telegram and WhatsApp. In recent weeks, these platforms, which are daily lifelines for 67% and 62% of Russians respectively, have faced significant disruptions. The attempts to block these apps have not only impacted millions within Russia, but also those abroad who depend on them to stay connected with their families and friends. During audio calls, it's common for words to lag or even drop out entirely. Occasionally, the connection improves, allowing for fragmented conversations, but often silence reigns. The underlying motive behind the push to block these widely used messaging services and promote the Russian-made app, Max, is glaringly clear. It's about exerting total control over information. The government aims to sever the public's access to uncensored news from various foreign agents, stifle the organization of protests, and gain unrestricted access to users' messages and interests. The official narrative claiming that the ban is intended to combat scammers is, frankly, an insult to our intelligence. The statistics tell a different story. Research from Kaspersky indicates that in the first quarter of 2025, mobile phone calls were the medium for scammers in 43% of cases, while the Russian central bank reported that 45% of scams involved mobile calls or SMS. Only a mere 16% of scams were conducted through messaging apps. Yet, for some inexplicable reason, Roskomnadzor, the Russian communications watchdog, has not prioritized banning mobile calls. The issue is not confined to Telegram or WhatsApp. Scammers have already begun exploiting the newly launched Max Messenger to deceive unsuspecting users. While it is still possible to access Telegram and WhatsApp using a VPN, either a standard one or one with obfuscation that disguises traffic as unencrypted, or by utilizing the built-in anti-censorship features of these apps, this cat-and-mouse game of circumventing government blocks is exhausting. For many ordinary citizens, especially the elderly, staying ahead of the authorities is a daunting task. Numerous accounts exist of individuals attempting to set up VPNs for their relatives, only to have them give in to the convenience of Max, despite its inferior performance compared to its enemy counterparts. Administrative pressure plays a significant role in this scenario. In Putin's Russia, public sector employees who have long been treated like serfs are often forced to use specific applications. Government agencies, universities, and schools have been mandated to transition their communications to Max. Property management companies are also under similar directives, required to shift their building-wide chats to this state-sanctioned messenger. It may not be long before Telegram and WhatsApp are completely blocked. With mandatory integration of the new Russian messenger into everything from state service portals to verification codes for banks and online stores. Discussions about this integration are already underway. To understand the potential implications, one can look to China's WeChat, which has been in place since 2011 and boasts over 90% user adoption. This app is fully integrated with a myriad of services and operates entirely under state control. What about privacy? It's virtually non-existent. WeChat lacks end-to-end encryption, meaning that the parent company, Tencent, can access any messages, whether personal or group chats. The system is designed to automatically scan for keywords, deleting any content that opposes the government. In China, stories abound of memes, like the comparison of President Xi Jinping to Winnie the Pooh, vanishing from chats, and accounts that frequently post negative content about the Communist Party facing scrutiny and potential punishment. For instance, in 2017, a man was sentenced to nearly 2 years in prison for calling Xi Jinping a steamed bun in a group chat, with the court ruling it as defamation and a disruption of public order. Similarly, in 2019, a journalist and 2 activists received 20-month prison sentences for a video parodying the president. The Russian Max Messenger appears to be just as susceptible to the FSB's oversight as WeChat is to Chinese state security. A study conducted by programmers on GitHub concluded that Max is not merely a messaging app. It functions as a comprehensive data collection center. It's easy to envision Russian security personnel eagerly scouring Max's group chats and private messages to fabricate high-profile criminal cases. Currently, individuals are already facing imprisonment for discrediting the military or disseminating false information through social media. Soon, similar charges could extend to group messages within this state-sanctioned messenger. Professional informants may find themselves obsolete as users' devices will report on them directly. Sharing a photo of opposition leader Alexei Navalny or a link to an investigative report in a closed group could lead to serious legal repercussions. One can only hope that the majority of Russians burdened with this state-imposed digital surveillance will exercise caution and refrain from self-incrimination. To further ensure that the diverse Russian populace remains convinced of the benevolent intentions behind Max, State Duma Deputy Sergei Boyarsky has suggested that the app's most vocal critics undergo scrutiny for foreign influence. Is Russia on the verge of becoming a digital gulag? 2 potential scenarios could unfold. The most optimistic outcome is that the authorities fail to effectively block Telegram and WhatsApp. After all, they attempted to do so in 2018, and the results were far from successful. People may continue to use these apps as their primary means of communication, resorting to hiding Max on burner phones with minimal sensitive information. The more pessimistic and likely scenario is that Max becomes entrenched among the majority, leading to a retreat of social and political activity into offline spaces. The small percentage of individuals who manage to evade surveillance through VPNs or alternative messaging platforms may find themselves infiltrated by provocateurs. In either case, communication between those living abroad and those who remain in Russia, as well as interactions among people within the country, will become significantly more challenging. While it may not result in a complete communications iron curtain, contact will still require effort. However, the majority, intimidated and easily swayed, will fall completely under the influence of state propaganda. For the repressive Russian regime, severing the connections between war critics and their families is a particularly gratifying strategy. Moreover, the communication gap between exiled journalists and their sources inside Russia, which has already widened over the past 3.5 years, may become nearly insurmountable. This will likely plunge Russian society deeper into apathy and despair. Even those who are loyal to the regime may not be thrilled at the prospect of living under constant surveillance by the FSB. In Perm, for instance, a rally against internet censorship, organized by the political party Rasvet, Dawn, had its approval revoked on the same day, likely due to fears that too many dissatisfied citizens might attend. No governor or mayor wants to face repercussions for that. As for President Vladimir Putin, who prides himself on being the chief advocate of all things sovereign, he remains indifferent to the concerns of the populace. The Kremlin's primary objective is to tighten its grip on power. The opinions expressed in this article do not necessarily reflect the views of the Moscow Times. A message from the Moscow Times. Dear readers, we are currently facing unprecedented challenges. The Prosecutor General's Office of Russia has labeled the Moscow Times as an undesirable organization, criminalizing our work and putting our staff at risk of prosecution. This follows our earlier unjust designation as a foreign agent. These actions are blatant attempts to silence independent journalism in Russia. The authorities claim our reporting discredits the decisions of the Russian leadership. We see it differently. We are committed to providing accurate and unbiased news about Russia. We, the journalists of the Moscow Times, refuse to be silenced. However, to continue our work, we need your support. Your contribution, no matter how small, can make a significant difference. If you are able, please consider supporting us monthly, starting from just $2. Setting it up